Hey guys, it's Chad from the Teach Better team, and tonight we are going to be building a physical education grid. That's right, you didn't mishear me. A physical education grid live for you. So let's get started. Hello, and good evening. I am here tonight with the amazing Dana Curby, physical education instructor extraordinaire. Dana, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I'm thankful that I got this invite, so I appreciate that, Chad.
You're already getting some love from your colleague Ray Hewart. She's pulling for you. We already got
I've
people in the.
maybe been chatting with her this week a little bit.
Oh, that's okay. I think you work very closely with Ray, so
Yes,
I think you're right down the hall there, not too far. Well,
absolutely.
maybe down a couple stairs too, right? So that's a
Across the pot, anyway.
there you go. Absolutely. I'm really excited to be talking to you tonight, Dana, because I feel like we're going to be doing something tonight that some people don't think can be done. Some people don't think that it's possible. They go, Chad, the grid totally makes sense for a math class. Chad, the grid totally makes sense for a literature or a language arts class. But Jim, are you
Correct.
serious? And I go, I promise, there's amazing teachers doing it. I've seen it, I've witnessed it. So I'm so glad you're here tonight. I'm so glad to kind of get your perspective and get your expertise and share some of your experience, not only with the grid and executing it in health class, but also how you see it and envision it in a gym room with students doing physical activities and everything that goes along with it. So
Absolutely.
before we go any further, could you just give a quick introduction to yourself? What do you do? And maybe some background in what you've seen and done with the grid so far and where you see it going?
Sure, absolutely. So this is my 20th year teaching. I feel like I'm starting to be that veteran group now, right? And
You wear it
it.
well, no worries.
Thank you. I have been at my current school for 10 years. I moved there when they opened, so we've been open 10 years. Our school, I think a little background about our school as well, I think also is important. It's a middle school, sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. It is about 850-ish kids
Yeah.
when we're all there. I think also right now it's important to mention that up until this point, just a week or so ago, I've had kids that were 2 days a week. So that was kind of one group. And then I had kids another 2 days a week. And then I had kids that were fully remote. So really every day, every hour, I was meeting with all three groups of those students.
Wow.
I feel like I'm gonna put that in there because I think I'll address that again maybe a little bit later as we talk more about
Sure.
the grid itself. But about maybe I don't know 2018, I think I had a coworker. You might know him, Michael Jennings.
Yeah.
He he's a famous guy, kind of celebrity ish. He came and he said, "Hey, I want to try something with health class." And I said, "Sure." At Evans, I feel like we are super blessed to kind of have that gift of saying, "You want to try something? Absolutely, let's go for it."
Right. Yeah.
And so he said, let's try this grid method. I think we should do this for health. Currently in my school, in my health classroom or in our health classroom, there's 5 teachers and we each take our own students to health, and health is about 6 weeks. And so I said, well, sure, let's give it a try. So in the last few years, some teachers have completely dove in. This kid right here. Some teachers have, said, I'd like to try it. And they end up trying it with one grid or something like that with one unit. And then we hit the pandemic last year, right? And so I had a couple of new teachers, and I had one teacher that was new, but is actually was a health major and a PE minor. And so she really, really wanted to try it so badly, and we got cut short with the pandemic and decided we weren't going to teach health the rest of the year. So obviously, it was a kind of an up and down. As we kind of worked into this year, we decided that, or I decided, you know what? We need to make this a little more fluid if all of us are going to do this. So I started creating websites with our grids. Why? Well, because that's what I've seen Ray do, right? And so,
Yeah.
and I've seen it
Yeah,
work.
so let's pause that real quick. One cool thing Ray does, instead of having the paper copy of the grid, she used to use a Weebly site. I don't know if that's currently
Yep.
still what she still uses,
Yep.
but she has her whole grid laid out on a website. So it's essentially a huge hyperlinked document where kids are working through it, just like they do the paper grid, but it's all on a digital website. So I just wanted to kind of go through that for context.
And I think too, because there's 5 of us, I think, and we all teach the same content. We kind of attach some things that are more individualized into our Google Classroom.
Of course.
And so I feel like that has 100% also just made this so much easier. And so I really feel like it was a defining moment in me saying, I think we can do this in the gym with greater ease. And so I felt like that, again, as we talked about, Chad, people are really nervous about what is this going to look like in a gym. I also have to point out our kids have one-to-one devices. And so maybe more in a more traditional setting, or a group that maybe doesn't have that, paper copies would make sense for them. But at the same time, I also feel like it is just easier for us because we have those devices. So, we use those. And obviously this year with the pandemic and teaching those 3 different groups, I feel like it was really kind of a no-brainer that we needed to make that transition. So
yeah, there was so much awesomeness you just spewed out. Like, I don't even know where to start. And we haven't even looked at the grid yet. So
we're not there yet.
This is just a preview, folks. It's going to get even better from here. So something I love about what you said is, like, you saw that natural transition of this. I think it's pretty obvious, and I don't want to beat this dead horse, how the grid could work in a health class.
Correct.
I think we can all kind of agree that health class is very similar to a science curriculum, very similar to a content-based curriculum, and we've been building those grids. But a lot of times teachers go, well, wait a second, how do I have a gym class where I normally have all the kids play dodgeball for 30 minutes? How do I turn that into a grid? And the truth is, well, you have to look at your standards, because we have to make sure that we're doing gym with a purpose, which I know is important to you.
Yes, absolutely.
First, let's take that step, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, make sure that there's a purpose behind what we're doing with the physical activity that the kids are doing. However, what are some of those things that you envision that self-paced environment looking like in the physical space of a gym? Like, if from gym teacher to hundreds of gym teachers that may be watching this now or in the future, how do you see? I know I have my vision, and I've seen it, and I'm going to share that. But I'd like to get your perspective. I'd like to hear your perspective of, how do you envision the grid and the progress monitoring feeling in a gym class? If you could just give us that idea really quick.
So I think we need to take a small step backwards, and I think this might help maybe kind of explain where we're at in our in our group, in our curriculum, in our school with PE itself. So in 2015, we became a blue ribbon PE department, and so it's like just an award of some sort through our state organization, our PE organization. And so what we had to do to kind of go to that level was we had to take a hard look at our own content, our own curriculum, our school, all those type of things. And when you spoke, Chad, just about the we got to make sure we're addressing targets and different things like that. I don't know that this would have been as easy of a transition then as what I'm seeing it going to be now, because
Sure.
we've done those steps. We
Right.
have that
Yes.
curriculum.
I love that you put that in here, right? So like the grid's a powerful instructional tool,
Mm-hmm.
but if you're not teaching to and aligning to objectives and standards aligned instruction, if you're
Right.
not if you haven't looked at the gym standards in the last 10 years,
Correct.
maybe crack it open, right? Like maybe
Oh,
take a
yeah.
look and see what's changed, right? Because they're there and a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
people
There's a lot of them, and that's the other
of
thing
course.
too. You have to figure out when you're looking, at your standard and your targets and all those type of things. Is it something that your district is asking you to use? Is it something that your school is asking you to use? And we rewrote our curriculum probably about that same time because we realized our curriculum was a disaster.
Right.
And we needed to solidify that and reevaluate it. It had been a long time, and so we needed to
Sure.
reevaluate it. And our district had asked us if you could stick with the Illinois state standards. We have those. We like those. They're there. I think we should use them. Fine, great. That's what we did. However, you can use national standards, the shape standards.
So you have more freedom than, let's say, a traditional. Okay.
Absolutely. And you could also there are a lot of different groups out there that can provide you with, here's content curriculum, just like they would for science class or math
There you
class or
go.
whatever, depending on what your district has purchased or whatnot. But we chose to write our own.
Love that. Love that.
So
Huge fan of that. So I think you're hitting on a really important point here. I think you're hitting on an important first baby step.
yes.
Whether you're doing grids or not, you need to know where you need to end up
Yep.
before you start this process or any instructional process, right?
Correct.
We need to know what our instructional goals are. And we can't just fill time with basketball scrimmages and
Yep.
dodgeball games and kickball when it's
Yep.
nice outside, right? And I don't mean to demean, like I had some fond memories as a child, but the truth is, like as an athlete, as a child, I loved that stuff because like
Mm-hmm.
I was just having fun. I couldn't
Right.
tell you one thing I ever learned in PE class from playing kickball, that I didn't already learn on the soccer field as a kid, right?
Absolutely.
So where were those targets? Where was that objective that was really being focused on? So I
Mm-hmm.
really love the fact that I think this applies not only to gym, but any subject we're talking about. So I'm going to just highlight this for a second.
Yes.
Dana's dropping some knowledge right now from the PE perspective, okay, that is applicable and should be applied in every content area there is. And that is, if you don't know where your students are going, it's
Yes.
really hard to get there. And so doing that foundational work is absolutely important. Now, there are two ways to do this, Dana. Some teachers go, awesome, I have grids, and they slowly build their curriculum with the grids.
Yep.
But I hear like what you're saying is some of this work was already established for you and your team.
Yep.
So it made those grids so much easier because you already knew what you were working with.
Absolutely. And I think it's important for me to point out, when we first started this process, Michael Jennings is the one that wrote our health grids. We
Sure.
all were involved, I feel like, in the process. And along the last few years, we've changed things, we've tweaked things, we've reorganized some things. But at the same time, I think for me, being the one to sit down and write this grid, it has created a vision in my head of what I feel like it needs to look like. Now, how am I going to get the other 4 people in my group to buy into that process as well? Which is, again, something that maybe classroom teachers don't have, I don't want to say to worry about, but might not have to worry about. I have 5 classes in the gym almost every hour of the day. And so you're talking somewhere in the range of 100 kids to 120 kids,
Wow.
150 kids, right? So one of the things that I think I should also preface with is that, my department works very well together. I think also that we do a really great job of creating different things for kids, creating different learning opportunities maybe for kids.
Yeah.
We do something called a health model where kids get to, let's say there's 3 or 4 teachers that in that time frame, that hour, and we allow students to choose what do they want to do. Are they going to work in a yoga unit?
So,
Are they going to work?
I love that.
So
You already have multiple things going on.
yep.
So my thought is maybe the grid will be able to help you explore and extend the structure behind what those choices are.
Absolutely. And also too, I feel like currently and I think one thing that teachers also, PE teachers specifically, size gym constraints. I
Yeah,
don't know
100%.
very many people that are like, oh, I just have so much space, I don't know what to do with it all, right? Like
Right.
that's not something that occurs. That I don't know very many people that
Not a common
comes
problem.
out of their mouth. Not an
Right.
issue. We're generally all in the other issue where I have so many students and I have no idea where to put them or what to do with them. So I've also, as I've kind of started to look at this process, and I told you earlier what I think I chose to build this grid on. I wanted to choose something that was very much a broad topic. Now, as I'm starting to kind of see how I want this to work in the class or in my gymnasium, if I was to start with something, if I've never done this before, I don't know that I would have chosen cardiovascular endurance to
Sure.
start off with. I probably would have chose a unit, like you said, Chad, where we're able to kind of get some stations going. And this is how we're going to kind of create that dynamic in class, because I think teachers are very comfortable with stations. I think it's something that most teachers at least have done or are doing in the past or currently. And so I think, again, that is an easy transition. Allowing kids to make that transition with something they're familiar with is also a great idea to make sure that, you're not trying to restructure your whole entire class of stuff they're not used to.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, like that's traditionally my example when I go to when I'm talking to a gym teacher at a workshop or working with a school, I go to something like, let's take basketball off the top of my head. And then we're going to get into your awesome standard. I love heart rate training and hit, but we're going to talk about all that because we might nerd out after this session about some of that stuff too.
Yes.
However, if you're talking about something like basketball, there is a normal discrepancy in all of your students in their ability to do whatever that task is. I'm going to use basketball. I don't know if there's a standard that says understand the rules of the game basketball, but forgive me if that's not a thing, but let's just pretend it is. Oh, perfect. Awesome. So, thank you for confirming my ignorance of not knowing anything about the PE standards. So looking at that standard, we could go, listen, there's literally the top 3 players on the basketball team are in my gym class. And I have this kid over here. Who has never touched a basketball in his life.
Yep.
To put them in the same drill with one another is detrimental to everyone's happiness and success in that drill.
Absolutely.
So what I often say is use a pre-assessment and go, okay, we're going to start the kids that are on the basketball team in a scrimmaging model. So you as the expert in athletics can actually have them improving their game possibly and actually learning something and growing. But maybe you have those other students learning how to dribble, pass, learning the fundamental rules of the game. So imagine these stations in the boxes on your grid being like passing, shooting, dribbling. And those basketball players might get through those stations in 10 seconds or not need them at all, if we're being honest. And they might be able to spend more time really honing their craft in game situations. But if you can get the kid that's never played basketball to make a foul shot, that could be life-changing for that kid. Not because they're going to go on a college scholarship, because they learned something they couldn't do before. You know what I'm saying?
And when they're learning stuff that they can't do, then they're starting to see success and they're going to enjoy it.
Yes, and that's transferable, right? And that's truly where if you can, and I've learned this, I've lost 80 pounds and run 2 marathons in the last 2 years.
Awesome.
And and physical accomplishment can make you stronger mentally in other areas of your life, right?
Absolutely.
And if we can give that to kids, if Dana can do that in her classroom for that kid
Yes.
that's never held a basketball, they're going to take that into math, into English, into social studies. They're going to take that swagger and that confidence everywhere they go after that.
So I think one other thing I think I would like to point out as we're kind of transitioning into this conversation about, cardiovascular endurance, right? Our
Right, which we are going to
school,
get to because we're 20 minutes in. This conversation is so great. I haven't even shown the grid yet.
our school has started using heart rate monitors, and we've used them for a very, very long time, right? I'm telling you,
Yeah,
it's life-changing.
yeah,
You need a grid and you need heart rate monitors, folks. Just those are the things that you need to have, right?
yeah,
And so as we're starting to look at students, that's changed my teaching as well, right? So I'm using heart rate monitors, right? And so we're wanting to talk about individual students and want to talk about the individuality of success. I have students that come in and put a heart rate monitor on, and they're already in the red. They're at the top of their zone. They
because they've
haven't done
never worked
anything.
out. Yeah,
They've
yeah,
done nothing, right? And so they come in, and what do they get out of my class? Well, they're going to get a good workout, and they're literally, maybe they're stepping up and down on a step, or they're walking.
right,
Guess what? I'm
right.
also not screaming and yelling at them because they're at the end, because I can see that they're already in the red, they're already in the
Yeah,
orange, and they're not, but I also
love
have
that.
that kid that's at the top who comes in, is a stud athlete,
He's
could,
in the weight room 3 times
yeah,
a week. Yeah, I got you.
could
Yeah.
run miles and it not phase him. What am I doing as an educator, as a physical educator, if I'm not helping them improve? So
Yes,
again,
that right there.
my
Love it.
thought process with this grid is I'm going to be able to challenge each of my students personally, as opposed to, okay, guys, today we're all going to be doing X, Y, or Z.
Yeah, everyone run a mile and let me know
Yes.
when you're done. Yeah.
And again, with our department, one of the things that we don't just work on the, you know, the physical part of things. Like, we want to work on the cognitive and the emotional and the social and all those other things as
Yes.
well. So, when we talk about our targets, we've kind of broke them down into physical, cognitive, and emotional or social
Sure.
targets, which is great. However, I mean, I think I also want that kid. He might run great, but he has no idea what he's doing.
Yeah.
This
Bad
grid,
form. He can't control his pace,
and
burning out the
he
first.
doesn't
Yeah.
have any idea, like, if I train in this zone, how am I going to
Yeah.
help? Or if I train
Right.
here, why
Right.
I'm working my tail off, but why is nothing
The-
happening?
this is how
Because
people get injured too, by the way.
yes, absolutely. And what our purpose is really trying to help kids be active for life, right? So when we're talking about all these things, we are really trying to get kids out. Yes, it's great that it's working now, but when you're an adult and we're not there anymore, how is that affecting your life, right?
You're just, oh my gosh. I wish I could bottle this up and take it with me
Well,
to
we're
every
recording it, so you'll
training.
be good.
We are. But like every training I have, because literally you are defining why mastery matters,
It
right?
does. It
You are
really
defining,
does.
because any gym teacher can go, get those heart rates up.
Yep.
Good job, everybody.
Yeah.
Because we're all doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But now you're saying, Billy, you're in heart rate zone 2. So if you want to work on your long distance running,
Correct.
stay in heart rate zone 2. But
Yep.
if you want to work on your sprints, we need to train you to stay in 3 and 4
Right.
longer so you can increase your stamina for short distances. And I'm getting real geeky now just because I'm getting a little excited.
That is great.
Yeah. But it's super exciting that when a student understands themselves, literally their own body,
Yes.
what that can allow them to do. And more than anything, it gives them control.
Yes.
It gives them control. And the same thing's true. Like if a kid has anxiety, them being aware of their heart rate is a cognitive skill, right? Because
absolutely,
their brain tells them they're being chased by a bear when they're sitting in their desk because they're getting nervous, right?
That's exactly it right there, Chad. Like, when we put these heart rate monitors on, when we first got them, we put heart rate monitors on. We had one smart board in our fitness room. Well, every kid thought it was a video game, right? So they just got closer and closer, and
Love it.
they're working harder and harder. And we're like, okay, we got to fix something here. So then we put cones around, right? You can't go closer to the smart board because you're going to go too close to, you got to stay outside the cones. Now we're at the point where we have TV monitors around our fitness room.
Love it.
And we spread kids out, but it's personal to them.
This is like the middle school version of Orange Theory. You got
absolutely. We talk about that. We absolutely talk about that. We talk about CrossFit. We talk about Orange Theory. We talk about all those things.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, we do have to get into this grid, and because I could just talk to you all night, I think, and never even open up this grid.
That's
so,
right.
so we're gonna have to schedule another conversation just
Let's
for
do
all
it.
of those awesome things. But I'd like to open up your grid and just take a look at the standard that we're looking at tonight. I normally have you give a little introduction, but I think you've done a little bit of that already via our conversation. So absolutely. I'm going to sit here. The standard that we are looking at is achieve and maintain a health enhancing level of physical fitness based upon continual self-assessment. So to me, this is a pretty loaded standard with a lot of pieces and parts. Yes. Does anything jump out to you as a PE, more of an expert than I am, looking at this standard? What are the big pieces and parts? And then I'm going to get into some of the DOK conversation, but I'd like to get your initial thoughts, if that's okay.
So as we kind of look at this, right? And I shared this with Chad earlier, but as I go to write this grid, I tried to put this into this format, right? And it was very difficult for me to wrap my brain around, right? So I feel like I just
and you've been making grids for a while. Let's put that context
correct,
out there.
Absolutely.
Okay,
so I felt like I kind of vomited this information onto this sheet, right? Okay, this is what I want to work on. And believe me though, Chad, even though I have been creating grids, for me to come in and kind of look at each of these parts, it was a good evaluation for me.
Sure.
To say, is this truly what I'm wanting to look at? Right. So as I look at our standard 20, a couple of things jump out to me. We're wanting to achieve and maintain. True. So you're looking at two things there. A health enhancing level of physical fitness based on continual self-assessment. So I would like to start to achieve and figure out how to stay there. But I need to be able to do that by continually assessing myself.
Yes. I also like that it talks about enhancing, which assumes that you can enhance yourself from any level of fitness.
Correct.
Right? So like health enhancing level means you're just enhancing from your current state of health. Not necessarily everyone's reaching, like you said it before, everyone's got a resting heart rate of 52, you know Correct. What I mean? Or something like that. But if they had a resting heart rate of 98 and now it's 75 or 80, that's health enhancing, right? Like
absolutely.
Or if their BMI drops, right? Or anything like that. Like now you're talking about literal life-changing things for kids Correct. That can take them into their future, which I think is truly the power of PE if done correctly, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So for me, let's talk about DOK for a second, because I always talk about DOK when we look at grids. To me, there's a lot of components of this, right?
Yes.
Identifying what is health and what means to enhance health. What are the metrics we use? So identifying those metrics like heart rate, VO2 maybe, I don't know like what you're going to look into for that. Maybe BMI, maybe weight versus height ratio, maybe muscle index mass. Like you could think about a lot of metrics, right? You could even get into like blood work and stuff if you wanted to get super, super nitty gritty, right? I'm sure you're not drawing blood in your gym class. I'm just saying. So achieving and maintaining that health, first the student has to identify and define what it is to be healthy and what activities they can do if they are healthy, or how those activities represent their health, right?
Correct.
So I think I'm already seeing some level 1 stuff in here. Then there is the enhancing part, which to me screams level 2.
Yes.
Once I know what those things are, I need to figure out how to make them better by applying the principles that I now understand. Does that make sense
Correct.
so far?
Yes.
If I
Mhm.
get anything wrong or mess anything up, just yell at me, okay?
No,
Or
this is
better
going
yet,
great.
if you have a whistle laying around, I need you to blow it into the. I'm just sorry. I didn't.
You know, every good PE teacher
She
has
does
one.
have a whistle. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. This live stream just got so much better. Okay. oh, that was that
That
was
was
gold. That was
you
so
ask,
perfect.
you and you shall
Oh,
receive. That's
I
how it
love it.
works.
You're my favorite person right now, Dana. I just have to say. So, enhancing to me means that you are applying what's being told to you. You are
Correct.
measuring your progress over a span of time by taking feedback, applying it, improving those metrics in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
Um, Now, to me, assessing yourself in self assessment to me
Mhm.
means that's DOK level 3 all day to me,
Yep.
because that's really you evaluating your progress against
Mhm.
those metrics, how things are going, where are you currently at, where do you need to go. And that is truly a very difficult thing to be able to do. That's a really high level of thinking that your students are going to be doing,
Absolutely.
that of thinking that your students are going to be doing, in terms of their fitness. Now, to me, that means, in my opinion, that this standard is kind of hitting level 3 to me. I don't know. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would agree. And here's the other thing too. As we scroll down to the bottom where the grid is actually at, I'm looking now. I've also put a second standard
Oh, sweet.
in there as well.
So we'll
And
go look at
that's,
that in a second.
yeah, it's standard 19. And this one is acquiring movement skills and understanding concepts needed to engage in health enhancing physical activity. Um, Movement
Go
skills
ahead.
and understand concepts needed to engage in health enhancing physical activities.
Oh, that fits
So
perfectly.
really that's standard 19 for us. So Illinois State Standard 19, and obviously then the other one is 20. And so those are really kind of we kind of address 19, 20, 21 for those folks that are familiar with the Illinois standards. We address those in PE, and then 22, 23, and 24 we kind of address those in health.
Gotcha.
Not that you can't address both of them in
Sure,
each
sure,
area,
sure.
but we kind of have split them up that way. That way we know we're getting to all that we need to get to throughout the year as well. So
Absolutely.
I mean there are a lot of, again, as we get into this now, there again is a lot of stuff that kind of goes into this as
Yeah.
well.
So let's start taking a look at some of that stuff. How's that sound? So
Perfect.
let's scroll down here. So for level 1, let's talk about some of those components. So we talked about kind of that first standard, which
Mm-hmm.
was and the enhancing fitness standard, and then the movement component.
Yes.
So I
Mm-hmm.
actually see this hitting components of both of those standards, which it
Absolutely.
should, because
Yep.
you're building both of those standards up, right? So could you want to review your level 1 targets and kind of discuss them really quickly?
Sure, absolutely. So in here, what we're gonna look at is um I always like to try. Thank you. I was like microfiche, right? Um,
I,
I,
I forget sometimes. Like I don't see
it
that
looks
screen.
great
It's
on
just
yours, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, so when I look at these, I definitely want to make sure I have them in I can statements because I want the
Yes,
kids
in the center.
to be
Love it.
aware of that. So I can name the components of fitness. That's generally at the beginning of the year, kind of where we start out, which is kind of where we would like to use this grid, starting off our year. I think
Yeah,
another good thing for me to point out is in our curriculum or in our classes, we generally have every other day is fitness, or fitness based.
nice.
And so I think when I start looking at this grid, I'm looking at this grid to maybe be expanded over the entire first 9 weeks. Um,
Amazing.
and so that way there's a real true opportunity for kids to improve and kids to feel like they have mastered something. So when I look at this, we have to start out with that basic knowledge though. I can name the components of fitness? Do I know what they are? You would
Yeah.
think that at a junior high level, secondary level, like people should be able to do that. And we've found that oftentimes they know what they are, but to say
But they
that they
don't.
can name them just off the top of their head,
Yes. And
they,
I think that's really, really indicative of, I think there's a lot of adults that can't do that.
oh,
Like,
oh,
I
I
think,
would agree 100%.
like I have a degree in biology with,
Mhm.
and I took a year of my doctor in physical therapy program, and
Yeah.
I run and I do stuff like that. So like
Mhm.
some of these things are like naturally part of my day or my
Right.
conversations and things like that. So I will naturally, like we've been doing this entire chat, like nerd
Yeah.
out with people, and sometimes they'll look at me like, "What are you even talking about?" Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right.
like it's just absolutely crazy to me. So it's so important to not assume
Mhm.
understanding. And that goes for any grid, I think. I hear this a lot. Well, they should know XYZ from last year, or they should know XYZ from third grade. And I
Mhm.
go, should and do are two different things, right?
When we do our health grids, and I think this is something, this is a great point to that. We do our health grids, we do them in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, right? It's a long time sometimes when kids, maybe they had health in October, November of
Yes,
one
there's been
year,
a huge span of time
then there's
between.
this huge
Yeah,
span, and maybe they don't have it the next year until the end of the school year, right? So we always do an intro grid. We teach the kids
love it.
every time how to do a grid. And so I feel like, and somebody says, some 8th graders, Coach Kirby, we already know how to do this. Well, can you show me that you know how to do this then?
Prove
You
it.
should be
That's
able
all
to
you need to
just
do.
cruise through this then,
Yeah,
no
it should be
problem.
5 minutes for you. Like,
So,
yeah, like let's do it.
by the time kids get to 8th grade, obviously it does speed up, but it's a good reminder for them as well. So, when I'm looking at these targets, I feel like a majority of these things are probably things that kids can do, but I want them to show me that they can do it because again, you have transfer kids, you have we have State Farm's headquarters here. We have kids transferring schools all the time
Sure,
because of
new
State
jobs,
Farm
parents, and
movements,
everything
right?
else. Yeah.
So we can't assume those things, I feel like.
Well, but
Um,
also but that's an important, it's an important aspect of planning in general, right?
yep.
Like we need to make sure that we're scaffolding that progression, and making sure that we're building that strong foundation, because it's not just that they can maintain their heart rate at 140 while they're
Right.
running. It's that they can tell you how they're doing that and why that's happening, right? like because like that's what matters, right?
Yes.
Like that's the mastery of this target in this standard. It's not that you can do that thing. That's part of
Right.
it. That's part of that second
Yeah.
standard. However, that first standard says, well, no, you need to be able to tell me and
Yes.
explain, you know, how are you assessing that you're in better shape than you were? Because when I'm
Absolutely.
running at a 10-minute per mile pace, my heart rate is now 140 instead of 160 or 190 or whatever. Like,
Absolutely.
not 190, because they might, that's not good. They might
Well,
like, for me, I would be in like in a hospital, I think, or
Chad, it
something.
also depends on your age. Remember that,
That's
right?
true.
Like,
Like my max heart rate calculation is a little different. That's
right.
true.
That's true. I
Oh,
love
this
it.
is so. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. So let's go through. So I can name the components of fitness. I can name 3 exercises for each component of fitness. That's a really cool, kind of matchy sort of like base level thing. I think that shows a base level of
Yes.
understanding. I think that's really good. I can describe each part of the fit principle. That is going to be a lifelong learning lesson for them, because fit is literally like it's the same thing as hit too. Like you hear
Yes.
this stuff all the time.
Hmm.
um and so them understanding the principle of fit in those things, and how to do an effective workout in a short amount of time, let's be honest,
Right.
that's life changing right there. And an accurate 6-second pulse, I agree, that's probably DOK level 1. Can you do what I told you to do in the cookbook directions, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we try to keep that in there, even though we use heart rate monitors. We want kids, we understand that that's not maybe a possibility all the time. If we're
Yeah.
doing something in class, we still want kids to know, when I ask you, how are you feeling? And we might use a rate of perceived exertion chart, 0
Right.
through
Yeah.
10. Um,
Absolutely.
Still, what does that mean, right? So if I quickly take it in 6 seconds, add my 0, I could do that anytime, right? So we want
Love
kids
it.
to be able to do that across the board.
And there's some like math, graphing, if you want to do some cross curricular
Oh,
stuff.
absolutely.
Lots of
Oh,
things.
absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So let's get to level two. Let's get to level two. Um, so now they're applying some of these these pieces, right?
Right.
So I can complete the pretest using my best efforts. So
I
could you
don't,
give me a little bit about that one?
yeah, I don't like that one, honestly, but as I'm,
So this is a great learning opportunity for everybody watching.
yes.
So explain to me why you don't like it, and then I'll explain why I think you probably don't like it.
I don't like it because you can't evaluate best effort
Right.
unless I'm using a heart rate monitor. So if I'm using a heart rate monitor, I know that my max effort, I would be in the red.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, potentially, but that's not effective maybe for everyone. And again, I would like to build something that's available for everyone. Maybe that day we don't have heart rate monitors or whatever the case is. So I'm not necessarily and again, I put that one in red because I don't necessarily like that. So
So what if, sorry.
no, so here was the activity, and this might help kind of
Yeah,
explain
yeah.
that a
Give me
little
some
bit.
context because I think we
Okay.
can fix this if we need to.
Right. So I want to know where each kid is at, right? I want the kid to know, where do they stand. So in this, I would like for them to apply some of the concepts that we've already talked about, as far as knowing where their target heart rate zones are at, knowing those type of things. And we need to know, where is my cardiovascular condition starting? Where am I starting at? So I kind of thought about, I'd like to give them a choice. They, could have two options. One, I could time them in a mile. That's kind of okay.
Sure.
I could also give them, okay, we have 20 minutes. How many laps can you complete in 20 minutes? If you're in better cardiovascular condition, you should be able to complete more laps.
Sure.
If you're in better cardiovascular condition, you should be able to have a reduced mile time, honestly,
Sure.
because your body's not
You're
working as
working
hard.
more efficiently. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I would like to, and I think for myself too, the other thing I have to think about is, am I going to be able to do that in a gym? And am I going to be able to do that outside?
Mm-hmm.
What space do I have? Here again, we go back to this space issue. Is it something that I can do, in an area? Maybe I've measured off a square. How many laps could I do in that square?
So yeah. So let's I love this, right? So you're literally you're giving so many PE teachers so many ideas right now. It's like not even funny. Yeah, I just got like 7 ideas myself. So um so here's the thing though, with this objective that we're looking at,
Mm-hmm.
what is the purpose, right? Like what are we measuring the student's ability to complete a maximum effort? Is that basically what we're measuring?
I'm really wanting to get like that baseline. Okay, like
Okay, so I can so would this be instead of like one of the things I didn't initially like about this statement, like in terms of a
is the complete.
coaching perspective. Yeah, like I can complete the pretest using my best effort. So like this is a really arbitrary statement. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard to measure this statement, right?
Absolutely.
However, if I would rephrase this into a more measurable statement, I
Mm-hmm.
can apply my understanding of fitness to complete an evaluative assessment of myself or something like that.
Yeah.
That to complete an accurate measurement of my own fitness or something like that.
Of my
Like
own cardiovascular fitness. Mm-hmm.
something like that would be a measurable thing that you can say you did the test, but it wasn't accurate because of XYZ. So you
Right.
still need to work on that.
Right.
So maybe let's work on the wording there.
Mm-hmm.
I think if we make it more specific and measurable,
Mm-hmm.
that will help us make it a
Yeah.
better target. Let's take the test out of the equation because they don't need to be able to what the test is to me is arbitrary. Their ability to take and evaluate the results of the test, I think, is our focus. Or am I off base?
No, so I guess I would ask then, what
If
is
I'm
it?
wrong, just tell me,
No,
right?
no, 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 no. I just what I want, because in this next kind of section of this grid, I want kids to start to create a goal based
Yes.
around the knowledge they have, based around where they'd like to be, that type of stuff.
Ooh, so yeah, go ahead.
So
I just got excited. I'm sorry.
I want kids to understand where they at. Oftentimes kids are, you know what, I'm the best athlete. My mile time. Oh, coach, I can get it under 5 minutes. Well, the last time you ran was at like 6:30. So no, that's not an accurate
You're
statement,
not
right?
shaving a minute and a half off your time. You're not
Right.
Eliud Kipchoge over
I
here.
mean, we just went to health and sat for 6 weeks, and now you're back in the gym and you think that your mile time is going to be the exact same as what it was, right? So we even have to look at that type of thing. So I want we've just been, if we're doing this at the beginning of the year, we've just possibly been sitting all summer because those video games are so amazing. And so I want them to understand where you ended at the end of last year might not be where you're starting the beginning of this year at. So
would a good target then be, I can identify my baseline fitness level using a prescribed assessment?
Bingo.
Because that to me is what we're getting at with all
Yes.
this conversation, as opposed to this goes for any subject area, right? It's not about the task. It's about what is the student mastering and able to do.
Can you say that again? I can identify my baseline.
Oh, you only get those things once. It's gone forever.
It's over. It's
over. I can assess my baseline fitness level using a prescribed evaluation or a prescribed task or evaluative tool or whatever you want to call that.
And that way, it also gives each group, even for myself, maybe each teacher could potentially be using a different prescription.
100%. Yeah.
For whatever that task
now you're
is.
Differentiating or universally designing this activity,
Correct.
right? Like,
Correct.
Oh, you don't want to run a mile because you've literally never run half a mile or quarter mile. Let's do a walking test, or let's do the square test. Or like, I'm even thinking of like the beat test. We used to have to do it in college soccer. They had this beat test, and there was no end to it as long as you kept up with it.
Absolutely.
Right? So like that would be an assessment that literally changes based on the fitness level of the individual, or something like that. So real quick, the master himself, the guy who wrote the book on assessment, Dave Schmidow, asked a question, and I just want to address it. By the way, we only have 13 minutes left. I don't know where the time went in this session. It's been such a pleasure, though. This is so much fun.
This has been great.
We need to do this more often. So what if a student can only do one of the components of the skills on the first level? What if they can take a pulse, but they can't identify all the elements of fit, or they can only identify a couple? Do we assess all or nothing? So I have my response to this, but do you have a response to that you'd like to share?
So I would look at a couple of things. One, I would look at, am I able to do a small reteach with them?
Right. Love it.
I would love to go back. I would love to, take a look at, okay, is there something that maybe you missed in the process? Sometimes kids are missing because they're trying to hurry through to get to the next thing, right? They want to show that I want to get to the top, it's again, like a video game almost. I want to get to the top level. But at the same time, I also would take a look at, is it something that I had the assumption that they had received already at a younger grade level, and it's never been addressed. So I might need to look at how I'm teaching that as well, and say, okay, am I missing the point here, right?
Sure.
The other thing that I would say is, you know, what is it that they can't identify? When I go through and I
Right.
try to grade tests, certain questions, I don't want to say that they're not they don't have a point to them by any means, but I would also say that there are some questions in a quiz or a test that I'm going to really truly know are kids understanding the majority of what I'm wanting them to
Exactly.
learn.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a matter in this situation where they haven't had the opportunity to apply those principles yet. So once they're able to apply them, they might be in a different situation of understanding them. So do I look at, what I'm using for the fit principle and as far as application, and I need to make a change in that? So they're needing to take the notes and do some practice, but do I need to change that practice as well? So if
Right.
kids aren't understanding it, I'm going to look at a variety of different things. And Dave, as far as that goes, am I assessing all of it or nothing? I think I need to assess all, but I need to see what they're missing. That way I know what I can reteach.
I actually think that's what Dave was getting to. A lot of times we go, you failed the quiz, retake all of it. You failed the quiz, redo all of it. When
Right.
we have to do exactly what you're saying. And I knew what Dave was getting at with that question just in my own head, because I love having conversations with Dave as much as I possibly can. So, so what he was getting at is exactly what you said. It's about reteaching where it's needed.
Right.
And it's funny. I often talk about pedagogy and connect it to fitness a lot, right?
Yeah.
So if I've been lifting weights for for 10 years, but I've never run a mile, my cardiovascular health is probably kind of crappy if I've never put my cardiovascular health into check. But my muscle tone and my strength is probably through the roof, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't look at that athlete and go, they're a horrible athlete. I would go, they're a very powerful lifter, but they need to work on their cardiovascular health, right? So it's the same thing when we think about assessments. See, it's all connected, folks. This is just such a fun session. And it's really about looking at the child holistically.
Mm-hmm.
Where are their gaps? How do we solve and intervene to close those gaps while building on the strengths that they've already shown? So I absolutely love that. So the other goals for level 2, I can identify my strengths and weaknesses. I feel like that's pretty on point in terms of like a level 2 basic concepts.
Right.
And I can create a SMART goal using probably a template or guidance or in some way. Oh,
the basic steps.
The basic steps.
Yep.
So that's more of a cookbook procedure, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
So once again, here's another like ding, ding, ding moment for me. Just because it has the word create in it doesn't make it a DOK level 4, folks. Okay? That's still very much a DOK level 2. The student is not being asked to like really stretch themselves very much. They're using existing information and applying information that they already have in front of them. They're not creating new ideas or concepts. The goal itself holistically might be a new thing, but they're putting just those pieces together using a formula that you're giving them, right? So
yes, and I'm also using that word create because I want it to be personal. So
sure, no, I don't think you shouldn't use it. I just like a lot of times people go, "Ooh, she said create. That should be on level 4," and I go, "Hold on, wait a minute, relax,
agreed,
calm down." So, so let's take a look at level 3. Okay, can you see that? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So here I'm saying I can modify my intensity of my workout to stay in my target heart rate zone. Again, we're talking target heart rate zone, and that could be different for whatever the workout is, right? If we're doing yoga,
absolutely,
then obviously that would be a different target heart rate zone
all the time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So modifying, so this is really important, I think. So in math, a lot of times for level 3, one of my favorite things to tell teachers to do is give students an incorrect problem and have them correct it, or give you the what was wrong and how to fix it, right? That's a very high level cognitive task. Modifying the intensity of your workout to create a cause of change in your heart rate requires you to fully understand how all of those things work.
Absolutely.
So you have to compare your current heart rate with your current level of work and intensity. And then
Yeah.
you have to go, I'm going to contrast that with where I want to be and the heart rate that I'm trying to achieve. So that to me is absolutely level 3 if we dig into it enough. Sorry, I just wanted to have that
No,
conversation real quick.
I absolutely agree wholeheartedly. The next one I just put in there was I can participate in a variety of activities to improve my cardiovascular condition. Again, I would be looking at, are kids selecting activities that are going to improve? So
So
yeah.
I would actually use that word. I can select
Mm-hmm.
activities that improve my cardiovascular like or I can compare and contrast activities to determine which activities will improve my cardiovascular decision or
Right.
something like that. Because here's the truth. I can participate in a cardiovascular activity and know nothing about cardiovascular activities. Does that make
True.
sense?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
so we just that's me being super nitpicky, but I think it's important to just have that discussion as we kind of work through this.
But I think in the long run, that totally doesn't change, but it solidifies what I'm actually looking at
Yeah. And that
as
right
opposed to
there,
that. Mm-hmm.
what you just said is the question I want every teacher to ask themselves as they go through this process.
Yep.
Targets that we are creating are not just arbitrary tasks that they're going to do once in our class. These are
Right.
skills and things that students, objectives that they are mastering, skills that they are mastering that they will be able to transfer in other places. So I really like the fact that we're talking about changing that. And that's just a note that I kind of had there. I'm going to real quick go through the rest of it because I want to get through like
Yep.
the meat of your grade, like the stuff
Sure.
that you put into it. Because every
Mm-hmm.
gym teacher, every PE teacher that's watching this right now is going, I want to see what she put in her
What's on the
grid.
other
And
side?
we're just having all these great conversations, and I could just do this all night. So level 4 is I can design a plan to improve my cardiovascular condition over a 4-week period. I absolutely think that's a perfect level 4. I don't actually think that needs any improvement. I love
Okay.
it. And I really love level 5 because I'm a runner. I could use my resources to community to find and compete in a 5K. Honestly, I think you could do so much with that if you think about it. Like if they get through, and the cool part is, if they made a plan in level 4 and it was a running based plan, that could be like a couch to 5K plan theoretically. That's a little short, actually, probably. But
But I will say this whole premise has been around. We did a 5K on our school grounds. It was a big fundraiser through 2 or 3 years ago. And we had students download an app and they were able to use their electronic
I love
device.
it.
And
You
that,
got to call me if you do that. I will totally drive to Normal, Illinois. No joke. I will drive there. I'll go visit Ray.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
She will not run the 5K. She will
No,
attest to that.
she waves
But
at us when we go by.
she will probably cheer us on and have a cowbell of some sorts, I think. But if you can just picture her getting super excited and holding
Oh,
up a big
yeah.
sign or something. However, I will totally. You let me know when that is. I will be there if I can make it. No
Well,
joke.
I will say
Absolutely.
this. I will say this as we kind of transition. We did that 5K. We trained for the first quarter, and it was raining and windy and awful outside. And
Yeah.
I had 785 kids during that year choose to go outside and run the 5K in
Oh
the
my gosh,
nastiest weather
that is
ever.
amazing.
Not one student chose to stay inside, and they had the option to do that. So
Folks, that's
it
what
was awesome.
engagement looks like, by the way.
Yeah, it was
that's
amazing.
that's amazing. Congrats. That's just like such a testament to your passion as an educator. So kudos to you. I
Well,
love
thank
that.
you. Thank you.
So level 1, I'm going to try to kind of walk through this. Please chime in as you
Yep,
see fit. But there's
absolutely.
some basic activities here. It looks like they're kind of like notes and videos with some practice activities below. Is that kind of correct?
Yep. So 1A, we're looking at an actual workout that has exercises inside of each of
Oh,
the
cool.
components. And then we always do something called an activity tracker. It's just a Google form the kids fill out at the end. It's maybe got 5, 6, 7 to 10 questions. And then that way it's a good way for us to track and check in and see where kids are at. Do they understand what we're doing? level or 1B, we're looking at a slide presentation with a fit principle and some notes and a little bit of practice for them to be able to look at the fit principle. In 1C, again, we're starting with the slide presentation, but the next thing is actually a heart rate activity where they're
Nice.
going to figure out their own zones, and they're going to take their resting heart rate and do a few activities to figure out what happens with their heart rate as they go through with that. Then
Nice.
1D, we would go ahead and probably do a quiz with in the form of a Google form, just kind of referencing all those things that were happening there. In level 2, we would like to, again, I would change this after you and I have spoken.
Yeah, that's cool. If you want to just talk in generalities, like that's fine. Like the types of stuff you want them doing on level 2, just like that's fine. It doesn't need to be perfect. This is a working document. No worries.
I would do some type of test, obviously, to kind of get their baseline.
And we talked about that. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. And then the next thing I was really kind of struggling with a little bit, and this is where I was definitely going to work with my team to kind of figure out how are we going to identify personal strengths and weaknesses? What are we going to look at with that? And then the next level there is creating goal setting for long-term and short-term, and explaining how to create a SMART goal. And then obviously having the kids create a SMART goal. That next level then is creating a flip grid. We like to use flip grids. And just having them explain to us what have they found are their strengths, weaknesses, and where's their goal at and what direction are they headed.
Yeah.
Then we get to level 3. We're going to do some modifying of exercise intensity to kind of stay within that target heart rate zone. We would do that probably in our fitness room with heart rate monitors. You could do that with, pulse, taking the pulse as well. And then we would just be giving kids some time over that's where we would get into that 4-week kind of training period of allowing them to kind of go through some different activities. We have this space, we have this equipment. What can you do with that?
I love that, right? Focusing on the parameters, right? So comparing the existing equipment and resources you have to the plan that you want to achieve and the goal that you want to achieve. That's literally something every person who's gone on a fitness journey has to do in their own home. I got 2 dumbbells and an iPhone. What can I do? You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I can't afford a gym membership or the world shut down. I can only do body weight exercises. How can I improve my fitness? And for them to be able to do that, I think is very, very cool and absolutely awesome. And then that level 4 is really creating that plan to improve their fitness and their cardiovascular health. And then they create a slide presentation that reviews and reflects on that plan and how it went. I absolutely love that. So when you're envisioning this, like in my vision, I would say like some of them are still learning like what the components are while some people are in their 4-week plan, right?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. Seriously, mastery learning and physical fitness are the same thing to me because you can't run 5 miles if you can't run 1 mile. You can't, you know what I mean? Like to me, like a PE and physical fitness are naturally a mastery-based process. So I love the fact that we're seeing how this really comes to life in the PE classroom. But sadly, we are already, Dana, 3 minutes over time for this.
Thanks for sticking around, everybody.
I know. Oh my gosh. So much awesome conversation. I could literally, do a 5-hour session with just Dana, I think. We would nerd out about fitness, I think, a little bit, but also her pedagogical knowledge is absolutely fantastic. So you are literally one of like the best PE teachers I've ever talked to. So
thank you. I appreciate that.
No, let me rephrase that. You're one of the best educators I've ever talked to. So let's say it that way because I don't think it needs the qualifier in there.
Thank
you.
You
are absolutely fantastic and you do an amazing job. So Dana, any final thoughts on the grid in PE or on like our discussion tonight that you want to share before we kind of close things out?
Sure thing. I think the biggest thing that folks need to know is it is possible. It's always possible. You have to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You have to kind of encourage your kids and push them outside of their comfort zone. But it is possible, and you have to take that leap of faith and that jump forward to make it happen. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. You're going to get stuck in that same cycle over and over again, and you won't see that progression. And I don't think that any teacher wants to feel stuck, and I don't think any kid wants to feel stuck. I think every teacher really wants to move forward, because if not, they wouldn't be in education. They wouldn't be pushing those kids. Use that growth mindset to make sure that you're able to move on and achieve anything that you think is possible.
Wow. I don't even know what to add to that. You just embodied like everything Teach Better stands for in like a 3-second monologue. That was amazing. Oh my gosh. Dana, this has been such a pleasure. I truly appreciate your passion, your wisdom, your pedagogical knowledge. This has been absolutely fantastic. I want to thank you. It's been
awesome, Chad. Thank you.
Putting yourself out there. This is not easy to do if you're a teacher, and putting your grid and your work and your thinking on display. And I also want to thank you for representing PE teachers everywhere that are just really getting into the work of education. I know I made some jokes earlier about dodgeball and whatever, but there's so much more to it than that. And I think you have unequivocally demonstrated that tonight. You did a fantastic job. I want to thank you. Let's get some green hearts going in the comments for Dana. I want to see them all over the place. That would be absolutely fantastic. And we will see you guys next time. Thank you, Dana. Have a fantastic night.
Take care.